Hello, how's everyone doing today? The book that I've chosen to start with is the second Nora Roberts book that I ever read. It is Vision in White, which is the first book in the Bride Quartet series. So how this is going to work is I will read the preface, and then I will start with the first chapter. Hope you all enjoy. Again, this is Vision in White by Nora Roberts. With bridal magazine covers to her credit, McKenzie Elliott is most at home behind the camera, ready to capture the happy moments she never experienced while growing up. Her father replaced his family with a second, and now her mother, moving on yet again to another man, begs Mac for attention and money. Mac's foundation is jolted again moments before an important wedding planning meeting when she bumps into the bride-to-be's brother, an encounter that has them both seeing stars. Carter McGuire is definitely not her type. He's stable and he's safe. He's even an English teacher at their high school, alma mater. There's something about him that makes Mac think a casual fling is just what she needs to take her mind off dealing with bridezillas and screening her mother's phone calls. But a casual fling can turn into something more when you least expect it. And with the help of her three best friends and business partners, Mac must learn to make her own happy memories. Vision in White by Nora Roberts. For Dan and Stacy, for Justin and Kat, for all the moments. By the time she was 8, McKenzie Elliott had been married 13 times. She'd married each of her three best friends as both bride and groom, her best friend's brother, under his protest, 2 dogs, 3 cats, and a rabbit. She'd served at countless other weddings as maid of honor, bridesmaid, groomsman, best man, and officiant. Though the disillusions were inevitably amicable, none of the marriages lasted beyond an afternoon. The transinuary aspect of marriage came as no surprise to Mac, as her own parents boasted 2 each so far. Wedding day wasn't her favorite game, but she kind of liked being the priest or the reverend or the justice of the peace, or after attending her father's second wife's nephew's bar mitzvah, the rabbi. Plus, she enjoyed the cupcakes, or fancy cookies, and fizzy lemonade always served at the reception. It was Parker's favorite game, and wedding day always took place on the Brown estate, with its expansive gardens, pretty groves, and silvery pond in the cold Connecticut winters. The ceremony might take place in front of one of the roaring fireplaces inside the big house. They had simple weddings and elaborate affairs, royal weddings, star-crossed elopements, circus themes, and pirate ships. All ideas were seriously considered and voted upon, and no theme or costume too outrageous. Still, with 13 marriages under her belt, Mac grew a bit weary of wedding day, until she experienced her seminal moment. For her 8th birthday, Mackenzie's charming and mostly absent father sent her a Nikon camera. She'd never expressed any interest in photography, and initially pushed it away with the other odd gifts he'd given her or sent her since the divorce. But Mac's mother told her mother and grandma muttered and complained about fecalness, unless Geoffrey Elliott and the inappropriate gift of an adult camera to a young girl who'd be better off with a Barbie doll. As she habitually disagreed with her grandmother on principle, Mac's interest in the camera peaked to annoy Grandma, who was visiting for the summer instead of being in her retirement community in Scottsdale, where Mac strongly believed she belonged. Mac hauled the Nikon around with her. She toyed with it, experimented. She took pictures of her room, of her feet, of her friends, shots that were blurry and dark or fuzzy and washed out. With her lack of success and her mother's impending divorce from her stepfather, Mac's interest in the Nikon began to wane. Even years later, she couldn't say what prompted her to bring it along to Parker's that pretty summer afternoon for wedding day. Every detail of the traditional garden wedding had been planned. Emmeline as the bride and Laurel as groom would exchange their vows beneath the rose arbor. Emma would wear the lace veil and train Parker's mother had made out of an old tablecloth, while Harold, Parker's aging and a formidable golden retriever, walked her down the garden path to give her away. A selection of Barbies, Kens, and Cabbage Patch Kids, along with a variety of stuffed animals, lined the path as guests. "It's a very private ceremony," Parker relayed, as she fussed with Emma's veil, with a small patio reception to follow. "Now where is the best man?" Laurel, her knee recently skinned, shoved through a trio of hydrangeas. "He ran away and went up a tree after a squirrel. I can't get him to come back down." Parker rolled her eyes. I'll get him. You're not supposed to see the bride before the wedding. It's bad luck. Mac, you need to fix Emma's veil and get her bouquet. Laurel and I'll go fetch Mr. Fish out of the tree. I'd rather go swimming, Max said, as she gave Emma's veil an absent tug. We can go after I get married, I guess. Aren't you tired of getting married? Oh, I don't mind, and it smells so good out here. Everything's so pretty. Mac gave Emma the clutch of dandelions and wild violets they were allowed to pick. You look pretty. It was inevitably true. Emma's dark, shiny hair tumbled under the white lace. Her eyes sparkled in deep, deep brown as she sniffed the weed bouquet. She was tanned, sort of all golden, Mac thought, and scowled at her own milk-white skin. The curse of a redhead, her mother said, as she got her carroty hair from her father. At 8, Mac was tall for her age and skinny as a stick, with teeth already trapped in hated braces. She thought that beside her, Emmeline looked like a gypsy princess. Parker and Laurel came back giggling with the feline best man clutched in Parker's arms. Everybody has to take their places. Parker pursed the cat into Laurel's arms. Mac, you need to get dressed, Emma. I don't want to be maid of honor, Mac said, looking at the poofy Cinderella dress draped over a garden bench. That thing's scratchy and it's hot. Why can't Mr. Finch be maid of honor? And I'll be best man. Because it's already planned. Everybody's nervous before a wedding. Parker flipped back her long brown pigtails, then picked up the dress to inspect it for tears or stains. Satisfied, she pushed it at Mac. It's okay, it's going to be a beautiful ceremony, with true love and happy ever after. My mother says happy ever after is a bunch of bull. There was a moment of silence after Mac's statement. The unspoken word divorce seemed to hang in the air. I don't think it has to be. Her eyes full of sympathy, Parker reached out, ran her hand along Mac's bare arm. I don't want to wear the dress. I don't want to be a bridesmaid. Okay, that's okay. We can have a pretend maid of honor. Maybe you could take pictures. Mac looked down at her camera she'd forgotten hung around her neck. They never come out right. Maybe they will this time. It'll be fun. You can be the official wedding photographer. Take one of me and Mr. Fish, Laurel insisted, and pushed her face and the cat's together. Take one, Mac. With little enthusiasm, Mac lifted the camera, pressed the shutter. We should have thought of this before. You can take formal portraits of the bride and groom, and more pictures during the ceremony. Busy with the new idea, Parker hung the Cinderella costume on the hydrangea bush. It'll be good, it'll be fun. You need to go down the path with the bride and Harold. Try to take some good ones. I'll wait, then start the music. Let's go. There would be cupcakes and lemonade, Mac reminded herself, and swimming later, and fun. It didn't matter if the pictures were stupid. Didn't matter that her grandmother was right and she was too young for the camera. It didn't matter that her mother was getting divorced again, or that her stepfather, who'd been okay, had already moved out. It didn't matter that happy ever after was bull, because it was all pretend anyway. She tried to take pictures of Emma, the obliging Harold, imagined getting the film back and seeing the blurry figures and smudges of her thumb, like always. When the music started, she felt bad that she hadn't put on the scratchy dress and given Emma a maid of honor, just because her mother and grandmother had put her in a bad mood. So she circled around to stand to the side and tried harder to take a nice picture of Harold walking Emma down the garden path. It looked difficult and different through the lens, she thought, the way she could focus on Emma's face, the way the veil lay over her hair, and the way the sun shined through the lace was pretty. She took more pictures as Parker began the Dearly Beloved, and as the Reverend whistled down, as Emma and Laurel took hands and Harold curled up to sleep and snore at their feet. She noticed how bright Laurel's hair was, how the sun caught the edges of it beneath the tall black hat she wore as groom, how Mr. Fish's whiskers twitched as he yawned. When it happened, as much inside Mac as out. Her three friends were grouped under the lush white curve of the arbor, a triangle of pretty young girls. Some instinct had Mac shifting her position just slightly, tilting the camera just a bit. She didn't know it was a composition, only that it looked nicer through the lens. As the blue butterfly fluttered across her range of vision to land on the head of a butter yellow dandelion in Emma's bouquet, the surprise, the pleasure, the surprise and pleasure struck in the three faces in the triangle under the white roses, almost as one. Mac pressed the shutter. She knew the photograph wouldn't be blurry and dark or fuzzy and washed out. Her thumb wouldn't be blocking the lens. She knew exactly what the picture would look like, knew her grandmother had been wrong after all. Maybe happy ever after was bull, but she knew she wanted to take more pictures of moments that were happy, because then they were ever after.